We're an island nation, drawn to the sea that surrounds us. For many, it's a playground. For others, it's where we earn our living. But the sea's unpredictable. It can change in an instant. And when accidents happen, they happen very fast.
On the sea, you have to expect the unexpected. It will just turn around and bite you.
Mayday! Mayday!
There to save our lives is a volunteer army of nearly 5,000 ordinary people.
When the pager goes off, we don't know what the shout is, where it is, how many people are involved. It could be anything.
Well, where do you feel the pain, Alex?
My back and my leg and my neck.
Stuart, just hold the boat!
I am so thankful that they came.
Things could have turned out to be a lot worse.
I've had people drown in front of me. Before we've got there, that person's gone.
Calm down, you're okay, pal.
Equipped with their own cameras,
My light flashing. Yeah, mine.
the crews give us a unique insight into every call-out as only they see it. Speeding through the roughest weather, searching for people who may only have moments to live. For those who risk their lives, it has become a way of life.
The decisions we make on a lifeboat can all mean the difference between life or death.
The 5,000 lifeboat volunteers around the UK and Ireland come from many different walks of life.
Can I have a card, please?
But all are willing to give up part of their own lives to save those of others.
It's a real good thing to do. It's a joy. It's very rewarding. It's very special. It's very unique. Not everybody can get on, put on those yellow willies and go to sea.
44-year-old volunteer crew member Neville doesn't just give up his free time to save lives, it's his day job too. He's a winchman and paramedic for the Coast Guard helicopter in the southeast of Ireland.
You know, when I come here, I'm committed to be here. Obviously, this is my profession. This is what I do for a living. So when I come on shift, we do a 24-hour shift. So I'm here for that 24 hours, no matter what. And at that period, I'm just unavailable to the lifeboat. But as soon as I get home, the bleeper goes on for the lifeboat, and I'm ready to go with them. Okay, you found him. Can you rescue him? Over. Yes. And so you're jumping into the water? Yes. Go for it.
Neville lives with his wife Melissa and their 3 young boys in the small town of Dunmore East. They've grown used to him always being on call.
Especially in our situation now, somebody has to be here to mind the kids and that, so, you know, that's my job for the moment.
In general, I think lifeboat crew, their wives are the partners. I think they're the core of any good lifeboat station. I couldn't run out the door without Melissa taking up the slack behind. You know, that makes it doable, and for her support, it makes me able to do what I do, and I'm very appreciative of that.
In the 19th century, Dunmore East was a major fishing port, but these days the town has a population of just over 1,800.
Lovely little quaint fishing village. I fell in love with the place when I came down here from day one. I don't think I could leave it now. I fell in love with the whole place straight away.
It's a community where everyone knows everybody. If the lifeboat goes out, most of the village know about it.
Over the years, the lifeboat crews here have been awarded 17 medals for gallantry, and their patch covers some infamously unforgiving seas. August, the height of the tourist season. Dunmore East receive an emergency call from the Coast Guard.
The kids have just gone to bed, and it's just that moment at home where you kind of relax and you hit the couch, and you know you can breathe. Bleeper goes. Typical, you know, you quick peck in the cheek and out the door, we're gone.
The rugged beauty of this coast attracts sailors from all over the world. But its position close to where the Irish Sea and Atlantic meet can create treacherous conditions.
The dangers of the waters around here is the weather changing quickly. Maybe combined with tides changing, can catch someone out very quickly.
2 miles away out at sea, a small boat is in trouble and taking on water. 7 minutes after the call, the station's Trent all-weather lifeboat is launched.
We found out there was a motor vessel that had rope wrapped up around his propeller that was after stopping the engine and stopped the propeller from turning.
He was a few miles away from here only. Matter of 20 minutes sailing. It's just the nature of the weather was a concern, and potential with darkness and weather getting worse was a concern for us.
Dusk is approaching, and to make matters worse, the sea conditions start to deteriorate as soon as the lifeboat hits open water.
There was a gale that day. There was a good swell as well as we were going away down along the shore towards where the boat was.
The crew soon locate the boat. Not only is the rope caught around its propeller, but it's attached to lobster pots on the seabed, anchoring the boat in place.
We came on scene and we could see that you could see the rope in the water and it was tight, that the boat couldn't move. The water was breaking over the stern of the motor vessel as well, so there was water on the deck.
The 75-year-old skipper on board is uninjured. But for at least an hour, the boat has been stuck stern to the swell, taking on water with every wave. The crew also fear the boat may have been damaged below the waterline by the force of the rope pulling on the propeller.
I think the biggest concern at the point is how much water he had taken on, because we didn't know exactly how long he'd been stuck.
He must be wrapped well under the prop there.
The boat sinking was a concern, and if the wind was picking up, it would be major problems for that boat.
The plan was to try and get the rope out of the propeller, so it was a matter of putting a couple of the crew members across from the lifeboat onto the boat.
Bring a gap across. Bring a gap across. Try and get it to yourself and John. Yeah. We need to send the third man.
Neville and John prepared to transfer across to the boat. Using a long boat hook, they're going to try and free the ropes around the propeller.
That man needed our help. I was gone on board to help him, and John with me, and you know, we'll do what we can do to get him.
This side. Yeah.
But in these conditions, getting from the 28-ton Trent class to the smaller motorboat is a dangerous manoeuvre.
Trying to get a big lifeboat against it in a bad swell, it can be pretty hairy at times. The swell was big, so as the lifeboat would kind of go up on the swell, the smaller boat would kind of go down. So it was a tricky job.
Us knowing when is the right time to jump, that's a judgment call on the day. You know, the worst place you can be is miss a step, because you're going down in between two boats, and that's not going to be very good for anyone.
Neville makes it across on his first attempt.
I do remember Neville the two boats were right next to each other. He just stepped off one and onto the other one. When it was my turn, I waited, and it was a case of judging the right time to make the jump. It's the best way I could describe it is like real life Super Mario Brothers.
Just as John starts his attempt, the swell forces the two boats apart.
I remember the mechanic saying to me, "Don't listen to anybody else, you'll know when it's time to go."
You coming? Right, go. Come. Come on, go, John. Go. Help you. Yeah, that's okay.
I remember just about making it. I remember at the top of my life jacket, the strap being grabbed. I don't know if I was going to fall backwards or not, but I remember him hauling me aboard onto that boat.
All right, how are you? That's right. Go, John, yourself.
Quickly establishing the skipper is okay, their first priority is to free the boat from the lobster pots to stop it taking on more water.
For me to actually snag the rope, I had to blindly sweep underneath. So yeah, it took a bit of a while to actually snag the rope itself, because it is underneath the boat and you can't see it. So to actually snag it was difficult in the first place.
The crew still have no idea how much water the boat's already taken on board, or how much longer she'll stay afloat.
It was tricky to get to that line and sweeping with the knife, and I just wanted to keep my centre of gravity over the boat as much as possible rather than being out over the stern.
Here, John, here, John. We're coming. Wait for it to see.
Finally, the lines are cut and the boat is free. Now the crew must find out how close she is to sinking.
Check the port engine, I'd say, yeah.
I was hoping to see no water whatsoever, but I knew there was going to be water in there because I had seen it coming in over the stern of it. But really, I suppose it's the amount, and that's what I was looking for, is how much water have we in there.
Below deck is almost entirely flooded. The crew can't tell if it's from the swell coming in over the stern or damage to her hull below the waterline.
She's good, she's 3/4 way up there now. Yeah.
We realised that the engine compartment is almost full of water. We're asking ourselves the question, is there a leak in a pipe underneath? Has water come in from the hull? We didn't know where this water is coming from.
Is your billy, John?
The boat is fitted with a bilge pump, which is meant to pump out any water from below deck.
As far as I know it is, yeah. It's automatic. It should be automatic, but she does.
Neville, I remember, spoke to the skipper of this boat, and they decided we can drive it in, and with the lifeboat with us in case anything goes wrong. I remember being down on my knees just watching this water the whole time for the trip back into the harbour here in Dunmore East.
What? It's all right. About half full, is it? Yeah. Okay.
His bilge pump, he was getting rid of more water than we were taking on, so, you know, that's always a good thing.
You see the headland there? Yeah. We're just past that about half a mile and we'll be into the port. Is that it? Yeah. Once you pass that headline right here.
The skipper, 75-year-old James, makes regular fishing trips along this stretch of coast. The wind was rising to force 6 when he struck the lines of the lobster pot.
When I got stuck on the rope, it was scary. All you hear is the wind. It was dark, cloudy, unpleasant. There was nothing I could do. I sat there and I was very nearly tempted to start smoking again. I had an old packet of cigarettes in the boat and I was very nearly tempted. I said, there's a good chance I might never drink another pint again, and if I ever went back smoking, I'd probably never have another cigarette. So I looked at the cigarettes and I took one out and I put it back in the pack and I didn't bother. And then I got sight of the lifeboat, which was great, you know, very reassuring. Best sight you can see. Very, very comforting. It's certainly not an experience I'd like to have again. And it's also a lesson to all mariners. It's very foolish to go out single-handed in any kind of an unpleasant sea, you know. And I've learned my lesson from it anyway. I hope.
The right way anyway,
The crew escorted James to the safety of Dunmore East Harbour, where his boat was repaired.
He was a pretty cool character anyway, I think. You know, it'd be hard to faze him, you know, but I think he was relieved to get out of it, especially, you know. He came across as a fairly experienced sailor, so he probably knew, you know, the loss of light as it was getting dark and a whole lot. He probably knew the dangers that were involved there and the potential dangers, so... You know, I think he was very, very aware of where he was.
If the lifeboat didn't get to me, when they did, and I was left on the boat, I mightn't be here now talking to you.
For all volunteers, being on call 24/7, 365 days a year, comes at a cost.
Being on the crew, you make certain sacrifices. You know, we leave our partners in restaurants, local shops, play parks, and they put up with a lot, and we couldn't do it without them.
My pager just has a habit of going off when I'm out with my wife's family. I don't know if that's a sign or not, but it always happens.
I think your family get used to it. You know, it's a way of life. Once you attach that pager, you have a service to do.
The whole family makes a sacrifice, because when you disappear out the door, you may not come back. And that is a really sobering thought.
You're in a perilous place. You're doing things that you wouldn't normally do in your life. You're taking risks that you wouldn't normally take.
It's all about saving lives at sea. We put ourselves in dangerous positions. We put our lives at risk as well. That's what we all sign up for.
Volunteering for the lifeboat, you give up your time, but the sacrifice of your time is rewarded in return much more.
1, 2, 3.
Somebody helped far outweighs the time you give up, the sacrifices you make.
In North Wales, the lifeboat crew in Rhyl watch over a stretch of coastline that pulls in hordes of holidaymakers.
Rhyl's a typical seaside town. Certainly this area gets heavily populated in the summer. People do keep coming back every year. It must just be the fresh sea air. Some of the sunsets we get here are absolutely fantastic. It's a beautiful place to live. I've lived in Rhyl all my life. Wouldn't really want to live anywhere else, to be honest with you.
When 36-year-old Vinny isn't giving up his free time to save lives at sea, he's patrolling the shore as a traffic officer.
I love my job, and there's not many people who could probably say that about the work. The most rewarding side of my job is looking after people, and sometimes comforting the families is just as important as actually attending the collision.
Vinny's been a volunteer crew member at Rhyl for 19 years, but when he's on duty as a police officer, he can't head out on shouts.
Switching that pager off means that I know I won't be able to go and help anybody if they need it and on the sea. The only saving grace from that really is the fact that I'm still doing a job where I'm helping people.
A warm Saturday night in May. The Rhyl crew are paged. There are reports of a person in the water.
I've been at work all day. I'd not long got in, and then the pager goes off. So, off down the boathouse.
All the crew know is that someone's in trouble in the sea just off Rhyl Beach.
My biggest concern was the fact that we didn't know a lot of information. You can work on facts, and you can plan on facts. You can't really plan on the unknown.
Okay, power on, yeah? Okay, do you want to get searchlights out ready, please, Charlie?
Will we have to search for them? Will we be able to find them straight away? We don't know where they're going to be, what conditions they're going to be in. So it's like, you know, you've got to prepare really for the worst.
Don't know any reason as to why they're in the water, any description of them, or how long they've been there, okay? So, obviously, concern is it might be there a while, etc., all right?
The station's small D-class inshore lifeboat is launched within 10 minutes, with Vinny at the helm.
It was certainly a quick launch. The person in the water, generally you do try to rush things up a little bit more.
Where are they?
The casualties at the western end of the beach. It's just half a mile from the lifeboat station, but with a casualty in the water, every second is critical.
Although it had been a nice day, the water's still very cold. If you go into the water, you get the cold shock.
Try and hold it a bit higher if you can, so it doesn't go on the sponsors, thank you.
It's very difficult to search on the inshore lifeboat in the dark. You have only got a couple of torches. Your senses are working overtime, and especially when you're searching for a person in the water, the only part of that person you'll probably see is their head. And sometimes, if they're close inshore, the background lighting from the promenade can have an adverse effect because your eyes are drawn to that and you can't really see. You have to just take your time, and it becomes a very methodical search.
There's a light on the beach there.
As they begin their search, an update comes in from the Coast Guard. There are 2 people in the water, not one, and both are teenage boys. The initial emergency call was made by the worried mother of one boy from 60 miles away in Lancashire.
I wasn't on the holiday, so Michael would video call me, so I still felt part of the holiday, even though I couldn't be there.
Kirsty's husband Michael had taken the 2 teenage friends, Lewis and Ryan, on holiday. That evening, they were playing football on the beach.
I thought it'd be nice for Ryan's mum to see what the boys were up to, so I did take a couple of pictures on my phone of them playing football. Lewis kicked the ball to Ryan and it went into the sea, so Lewis then stripped down to his boxers and ran in to get the ball. I took a picture of that, him and Ryan running to get the ball. The video call went black, so I couldn't see anything at all, but I could hear everything.
Within a few minutes, I realised Lewis had got into difficulty, and that's when I run in straight after him.
He went under for about 5 seconds each time. It was a shock to him. He just couldn't hold his breath and
It was just sheer panic, really. With being not a strong swimmer myself, it was sort of panicking about, obviously, can I save Lewis? What's going to happen to Lewis?
I could hear Michael screaming to Lewis to go on his back. And shortly after that is when the phone went dead.
You're trying to get to him, it's just going further and further away, and he's struggling, you can't help him. It's just a terrible feeling.
Okay, what we'll do, guys, we'll go ashore anyway, see if they need any help. You can ditch the light now, please.
When the crew arrived, Michael's managed to get the two boys out of the sea and back to the beach. But that doesn't mean they're out of danger.
When we got on scene, there was 2 boys sat on the wall, which was about 25 metres away from the shoreline at the time.
Hello there. So who's been in the water? Both of you?
Yeah.
Okay.
One boy, Lewis, he was in quite a bad way. He had obviously been in the water. He'd been suffering the effects of the cold. He was shaking, shivering, and when we did the initial assessment of him, his breathing rate was really high. He was a concern, a big concern.
Okay, listen, what we're going to do is going to put this mask over you. All it is oxygen, okay? Because your breathing rate's a bit high, okay, it's going to help you breathe. Just breathe naturally and normally.
With no ambulance on scene yet, it's down to the lifeboat crew to try and keep the casualties conscious and stable.
We recognised straight away that we need to administer oxygen. You've got to make sure, yes, they're out the water and they're safe, and then that's when you can have what's called post-rescue collapse, whereby the body will stop fighting because they realise they are safe, they think they're safe. Oh, I'm going to be okay now, the lifeboat's here. And all of a sudden, they can deteriorate very quickly.
Yeah, Lewis, how long were you in the water for, fella?
I don't know.
You don't know? All right, did you swallow any water? You have, yeah? Okay, bud.
From his training as a police officer, Vinny knows how vital communication is with a casualty immediately after a traumatic incident.
It's really important to keep them talking and to keep them focused as well, because it gives them something to focus on.
Got anything to eat today, Lewis? What did you have for tea, bud?
Hot noodle.
Hot noodle? Oh, diet of champions, that fella. Charlie, how's little man doing? Yeah? Breathing's 4, normal, yeah? Cat refill normal?
The other teenager, he was poorly, but he wasn't as bad. He didn't need oxygen at that point. He was okay, and he was a bit more alert than the other casualty.
Sold up? Yeah, cat refill. Well, that's okay.
You could see Lewis was in a very poorly state. I knew straight away he needed to get to a hospital quickly, because there's only so much we can do.
All right, to try and do is stay awake from me.
To Vinny's concern, there's still no word on when the ambulance will arrive. Lewis's condition starts to deteriorate.
At times, he was starting to close his eyes, and that's when you start realising that the body is really struggling to do the primary functions, really, or they're shutting down everything else in order to keep the heart going and the lungs breathing.
Just further information, one of the casualties is just starting to drift in and out of consciousness. So we've got the basket stretcher and we're assisting in giving first aid. Just wanted to give you that update over.
We spoke to the Coast Guard a couple of times, asking them what's the estimated time of arrival for the ambulance, and we just kept getting told there isn't one. There wasn't they couldn't give us a time. I was preparing myself to have to give Lewis and Ryan the care they needed for maybe up to an hour, and that's what I had at the back of my head as well. But we weren't getting the information, so we just had to go on what we were being told.
Yeah, Roger. I'll let you know
It's always a long wait, waiting for the ambulance. Yeah, and this felt long. What I really didn't want is an unconscious casualty, because then you're into the realms of having to do CPR, and it's very difficult to bring somebody back.
Coast Guard's Rhyl mobile ambulance is now on scene. Over.
25 minutes after the lifeboat crew arrived, the paramedics reached the scene.
It's a massive weight off my shoulders when the paramedics turn up. They're the experts at that stage, and you know, once I've handed over to them, it's a case of, okay, it's done.
How are you feeling, Lewis? It's a bit rotten. What we need to do, mate, is put you in the back of the ambulance, okay?
Lewis and his family are regulars at Rhyl Beach, but the strength of the currents took them all by surprise.
When he got out of the water, he just looked really white with really blue lips. Thinking I was going to lose Lewis, it really scared me because he was just one of my closest mates. So it's like one of the scariest things I've been through.
I was feeling quite scared. To be honest, I thought I was going to drown.
When Lewis got out of the water, I was just really happy because I didn't lose one of my best mates. And it was just a really good relief to see him alive.
Lewis was taken to hospital 3 miles away and treated for shock, cuts and bruises. He was discharged 4 hours later.
It was a huge relief. I didn't realise how petrified I was until after it all finished, and I could thank my lucky stars that Lewis was okay.
I think this could have happened to anybody. They probably just thought, I'll go and get the ball. How hard can it be? I'm sure they've reflected on it, and they've probably thought, if it happens again, through experience, they'll probably just let the ball go.
The football cost $4.99. It wasn't worth it. You know, we've got 5 footballs at home. You know, I don't understand why he'd run out after the $4.99 football.
I genuinely believe that had we not have got involved when we did, then certainly Lewis, it could have been fatal. Yeah, I'd say it was a life saved.
In North Cornwall, 28-year-old Adam has been a volunteer for 11 years. In his day job, he's a doctor, working 60-hour weeks at the hospital in Truro.
The sacrifice of being a volunteer for the RNLI is you have to accept that a degree of freedom will be lost.
Adam commutes over 230 miles for his volunteer shifts.
I think people are surprised when I say I volunteer for the Lifeboat because they always say, where do you find the time? And my response is, I don't need to find the time because it's just a way of life.
Adam started volunteering at Tower Lifeboat Station when he was living in London, studying to be a doctor. 5 years on, he still returns to put in regular shifts.
Tower Lifeboat is a complete contrast to the north coast of Cornwall. The Thames is one of the most dangerous waterways that I've seen in my career.
Launching over 500 times a year, Tower are the busiest of all the lifeboat stations across the UK and Ireland.
If I had the choice, I would rather get in trouble in the sea. I feel like I could escape that. The undercurrents in the Thames and the unknown dangers are something that scares me when I'm on the Thames.
July is the height of the tourist season, and the Thames is packed with boats of all shapes and sizes. Tower Station receives an emergency call. A man has been spotted in the water under a pier near Canary Wharf. But the crew are at the opposite end of the 15-mile stretch of river they cover.
We were actually training at the time, and an immediate call came through on the radio from the Marine Police that somebody was in the water, clinging to a post within an enclosed pier. When the radio call comes through, immediate person in the water, a sense of urgency floods through your body.
The Thames River Police radio in with an update.
As more information was coming through from the radio, it became clear that the casualty was in a position that nobody could help him. The police wanted the lifeboat there now.
We could hear in the police's voice that something was not quite right about this job. They kept saying, no, we've got to wait for the lifeboat, we've got to wait for the lifeboat.
Time is critical on the Thames when responding to shouts. We may get called to someone who's entered the water, who can be seen. By the time we get there, all that we can see is the palm of their hand before they go under.
The crew cover the 10 miles across London within 14 minutes, but they still have very little information about the casualty or his intentions.
We had no way of knowing how long he'd been in the water, whether he had any injuries, whether this was a deliberate attempt to enter the water.
A police officer is trying to coax the casualty out from the water under the network of wooden legs supporting the pier.
He was holding on tightly to one of the uprights, and so he couldn't be reached from where we was. There was only one option for us, and that was that someone was going to have to enter the water.
The tide is flooding in, and the pier sits on a large bend in the river which accelerates the water flow even more.
It's just a dangerous environment to be, so we won't enter the water unless we really have to. It's not a place you want to be. It's a last resort for us, really.
Taking a rope with him, Steve gets into the fast-flowing water.
This casualty wasn't safe despite us arriving on scene. We had to act quickly.
I'd go along the wall, Kingy.
This casualty had let go. The potential is that he would have disappeared into the murky water and we wouldn't have been able to rescue him.
Steve makes it safely to the casualty, but the man remains completely unresponsive.
He was very cold, he seemed confused. He was obviously very distressed, and we couldn't get any conversation out of him at all. He wasn't going to let go of the upright, so I tried to get a inflated life jacket around him. He decided he didn't want that and tried to deflate it. In the end, it was a case of actually getting hold of him just to get him off the upright and over to safety.
Well done.
I managed to get him and swim backwards over to where there were other crew.
We improvised. We used actually one of the bow lines from the police boat that was in the water, and we used the large loop in it to secure the casualty.
That's it, Steve, well done.
He was then safe and we could keep his head above water and we could plan on how we were going to get him out of the enclosed pier.
All right, we got him.
The only way the crew can get the casualty to the lifeboat is through a narrow gap under the beam.
Pass that line over.
But with the rising tide, the gap is fast disappearing.
Got him. Yeah.
We had a very small window to get the casualty out through them piles. If we'd left it a few more minutes, we'd have lost that gap.
Let go of that. Let go of that.
But the rope attached to him is too short to let the casualty underneath.
Go through that loop and hold his hand. Hold his hand. Hold his hand. Right. Slack on the line. Yeah. Slack on the line. Right, line slack.
Without the rope holding him, the casualty is swept out of the pier and towards the lifeboat. The crew's next challenge is to pull the unresponsive man on board.
When you're lifting casualties out of the water, fully clothed with shoes on, it takes two strong people to lift them over the gunwale of the lifeboat, and even then, we struggled.
Up the front.
Yeah, I think his body was at the point of giving up, and I think that reflected in how difficult it was to get him into the lifeboat. Yeah.
There you go, mate. All right.
All crew members are trained in basic first aid, but with a casualty in a serious condition as this, Adam takes the lead.
He's a doctor at the end of the day. He's a professional medical person, so any professional medical person alongside us is going to be a bonus.
I have a duty of care to patients as well, and I think if you don't sensibly use your skills outside of the hospital, then there's no point having them at all. He looked scared. Being in the water, he was cold, he was shocked.
You right? What's your name? What's your name?
I think he understood that he'd nearly lost his life.
Adam administers oxygen to try and keep the casualties stable.
All right, just relax.
You worry in this situation that the casualty is going to deteriorate further. We were very lucky in this instance that Stan had arranged the ambulance to meet us at Wapping, which was only 2 or 3 minutes away.
I'd known Mayo in the water for roughly 20 minutes. He hasn't lost consciousness at any time. 20 minutes.
Once he was in a safe location and the paramedics had arrived, I popped a drip into his left arm, and it allowed time for the paramedics to conduct their primary survey.
The casualties taken to hospital, and the lifeboat crew depart, uncertain as to his future or why he was in the water in the first place.
I think sometimes it can leave you a little bit empty after a shout. The loop isn't completed, is it, until you hear back from the casualty families or friends. But actually, we left that day knowing that we did everything we could for him. We've given him an opportunity now. It's about second chances, and we often pull people out of the water who may just need a second chance, and he may be one of them.
I think we could safely say that that was a life saved. Saving someone's life is really what it's all about, and the feeling that you get from that makes it all worthwhile, and it is just such a good feeling. You feel like you've really done something good.
Of the 8,000 shouts they launch to around the coast every year, the lifeboat crews are often pushed to their mental and physical limits.
You have to be reasonably strong, dealing with rope work all the time, trying to get people in and out of the boats. You definitely need to be a tough insider now.
We've got to get away.
You do have to have a mental resolve to go to sea. That mental resolve comes in having faith with the people you're out on the boat with.
It's scary. Any lifeboatman that says they're not scared or have a certain amount of fear when they go out there is telling lies.
If you're the helm of the boat, the last thing your crew wants is you looking worried. Even if inside I'm thinking, oh, that was close, but you keep that to yourself.
There's been times on the shout where I've been freezing cold and wet, and sometimes you question what's the rationale for being out here. But then you look around at your friends and your mates sat next to you, and you think of someone out there that needs your help, and those doubts soon drift away.
On the rugged North Yorkshire coast lies Redcar, a once thriving steel town. The lifeboat station here was founded in 1802, making it one of the oldest in the country.
Redcar's situated between the sea, the industry, and the North York Moors, and as a result, the coastline and the people who use the sea, we get a mix of all types. It can be commercial ships from the River Tees, it can be fishing boats that operate out off the beach at Redcar, it can be hill walkers who are walking along the Cleveland Way.
Heading southeast down the coast, Redcar's long sandy beaches give way to a dramatic and dangerous landscape.
We have 7 or 8 miles of golden sand. As we follow the coastline down towards the Yorkshire cliffs, the cliffs rise from the beach up to 300, 400 feet high.
Take the weight, steady. 1, 2, 3.
Although their motto is saving lives at sea, a large number of the crew's shouts are to people on the shoreline.
Steady. Really slowly.
And like many stations, Redcar regularly train for cliff rescues.
The whole ethos of lifeboating is teamwork, and teamworking is built on trust. Having absolute trust that everybody around you will do what's required to be done. And that trust is built up through training. We spend time together. It is a family. And within that family, we absolutely trust each other.
A still June night. The lifeboat station receives an emergency call. Someone has called 999 asking for help. The caller was alone at the top of a cliff.
So our initial tasking was to search for a missing person beneath the cliffs, and they had received a phone call from the ambulance service to say that the person was threatening self-harm.
These types of shouts are very urgent. The way I prepare is expect the worst and hope for the best. I think if you imagine the worst possible situation you can, anything you come across, you're not going to be too shocked.
It's always important to bring back any casualty. Our aim is to always bring back a person, and we want the best outcome. Even in the event that that's not possible, you still want to bring that person home. They have loved ones, and bringing that person back to their loved ones is the most important thing. As lifeboat crews, we will always endeavour to do our best. But yes, it is difficult, and it's also difficult to place your mind in their head, because I don't understand why they potentially want to do what they're doing. But that's not for me to decide. All I'm there to do is help.
The station launches both its inshore lifeboats, the larger Atlantic 85 and the smaller D-Class, or IB-1.
The IB-1 can get ashore easily under the cliffs. It's easily to be handled on the shore edge, and we can put crew ashore to either recover a body or search for a person. And then we use the 85 as a communications link. Because of the height of the cliffs, we lose VHF coverage, so the Atlantic can stand off a little bit and relay messages.
In calm seas, both lifeboats speed through the night. Arriving at the cliffs and with a difficult search ahead of them, the crews must now get their eyes adjusted to the darkness.
Fortunately, we had a full moon, but under the cliffs, that's in the shadow of the moon. And so, absolutely pitch black.
Your eyes peeled. Operating in the dark is obviously a lot more risky. Humans are not designed to see well in the dark, so everything we do has to be a bit more calculated. We have to be very much more careful navigating the boat and save speed.
Red Cross, Red Car Lifeboat. Good evening. We see your white lights. Our intention is to go down to Bird, Flight, Goit and search back towards you.
The Coast Guard are searching the top of the cliffs, but have found no trace of the person who called 999. It's the Red Car crew's job to search the bottom of the cliffs.
I almost said we're used to doing these calls. We're not used to doing them. We're used to getting those calls. If the individual has done that and have taken their life, then what we're trying to do is bring closure for a family and bring them back the body. Or otherwise we're trying to ensure that they're not there and they're not going to spend a night out in the cold and that they'll get the help that they need. These calls are, make no mistake, horrendous to deal with. It's violent and it's extremely traumatic for anybody to go and deal with that incident. So you cannot get used to it. It's something that we deal with. You know, it's something that we have to adapt to as a crew. That it is more regular, and it's something that we need to, you know, we need to think about how we're managing those calls, particularly for younger crew members.
When you start walking ashore, what you really want to do is actually find nothing. You want that person to be safe and warm and at home, and it to be a false alarm with good intent. You never want to actually find the person, but if you have been given the facts that they are there, then obviously we want to find that person and get them out as safely as possible.
Once on the beach, the crews start to systematically sweep along a 2-mile stretch of cliffs.
Some trousers here.
The crews on the 2 lifeboats are also scanning the area from just offshore.
Red Car ILB, Lifeboat Alpha, over.
Lifeboat Alpha, roger that, we'll head there now. Out.
The other two boats were giving us targets to investigate.
10 metres ahead. There's a log there.
You're just about upon the first white mark we spotted on the beach from the seaward side.
ILB Alpha, roger, that's a large lump of wood, over.
We're looking for a person, looking for any items of clothing or personal effects that may have come down off the high cliffs. So obviously you're scanning with a torch and searchlights to try and pick up anything that just doesn't look as if it should be at the bottom of a cliff.
No, I can't see anything.
Yeah, you're just not on that mark now, Steve. There's another mark about 15 foot up the cliff face, about where you are.
It's just a big flat rock. Nothing there.
Just watch yourself, because all these rocks are loose. Sliding all over the place.
The base of the cliffs is a dangerous place. Big rocks covered in seaweed, very slippy underfoot.
Have to watch as these rocks are getting a bit of green on them now. Start getting slippy.
That night we had to not only search for a possible casualty, you had to also watch where you're putting your feet. Oh, Jesus. Oh, bloody hell. The terrain was precarious at best. Lots of large boulders, some were green, very slippy where the tide had been in, a full tide. So I myself fell quite a few times. You are? Oh! Oh, yeah. Good job I've got big arms. This particular shout was probably the hardest I've done this year. More physically, it was quite tough going, but yes, definitely under the cliffs is the hardest, one of the hardest jobs we do. Right guys, hold on. There's something there.
After nearly an hour of searching, Steve suddenly spots something amongst the rocks.
You're almost preparing yourself when you scan around with the torch. Any second you could be coming across a body. What's that there? When I first looked, I thought it actually looked like remnants of a body. It's like a leg or something. What the hell is that? Neil come over and he had a second look. It was like a fresh pair of eyes, and he gave it a little tap with his boot.
Seaweed on top of some polystyrene. Yeah.
Fortunately, Steve's discovery is a piece of polystyrene foam washed up on the shore. The crew move on and continue to comb the beach.
With the focus being on trying to find a casualty, I think the dark does tend to play tricks with you, and you just focus on finding a body. And I think every little thing that looks like it shouldn't be there, that then becomes the casualty.
I think this is a cut-off point.
After a 2-hour search along 2 miles of rocky beach, the lifeboat crew are unable to find any trace of the person who dialed 999.
It's difficult to keep going. As the night goes on, you get more and more tired, but you know that there could be somebody literally 10 feet away from you, and you just haven't found them yet. So until we're asked to stop searching, or we've completed the task we were given, then we'll keep going.
We can't do much more. The lads have done a thorough search from where we dropped them off all the way around to where they are now.
That night, we come to the end of our search area. We'd finished searching what we were tasked to do, and we'd come across nothing.
In terms of what happened to the casualty, we don't know, but I do hope that they were safe and well, and it was a false alarm with good intent.
The crew must return to base with no idea what happened to the person they were called out to.
I think the crew are always disappointed that they haven't been able to locate a person, especially if we genuinely believe that person is still missing. It's always difficult to stand down and go home.
Dunmore Coast Guard, Red Car Lifeboat, that's us recarriaged, ready for our next service. Over.
Roger, sir. Many thanks for this evening, and we'll speak to you next time. Over.
Good night. Out.
In Wales, Cardigan Bay is a rugged coastline which stretches over 100 miles, watched over by 10 lifeboat stations. At the southern end of the bay, one station is based in the small town of New Quay.
In the summer months, it goes from being a sleepy fishing village with about 600-700 people to maybe 12, 13, 15,000 people. You've got people doing paddle boarding lessons, you've got people swimming, kayakers and people in lilos floating around. You've got everybody that's on holiday that wants to use their boat that one time of the year. They'll be out there, either they're sailing or they're in powered vessels. It can be a very busy patch of water.
And the busiest time of year on this patch of water is the August bank holiday.
I was in the shop, my phone went, and it was my girlfriend. She was on a boat down by Aberporth. She'd seen someone falling out of a boat and the boat carrying on without anybody in it. Next thing, the pager goes off, so I run down to the boathouse. I know what's going on, so I'm informing a couple of the people that were there what's happening.
5 miles away, a speedboat is running out of control. The immediate risk to life and limb means the inshore lifeboat launches with just 2 crew on board.
This was bank holiday, a stunning day, flat calm, all the beaches, they'll all be chock-a-block. People will be swimming. If that boat heads towards those beaches, it's likely to cause someone a lot of damage. It could even head up the beach and start hitting people, depending on the speed of the craft.
The boat is at least 20 minutes away and there's still no news about its occupants. If they're in the water, every minute's delay increases the risk of them being hit by the vessel or its propeller.
Is anybody who's fallen out of the boat in the path of this out-of-control boat? You might dodge it once, might dodge it twice, but it's going to keep coming. I've known people having life-altering injuries and people unfortunately dying because they've been hit by their own boat that they've just fallen out of. So that was my immediate thought.
After a frantic dash down the coast, the crew approached the area where the boat was last spotted.
We rounded Lochtin Head. We could see stuff in the distance because there was a few boats that were watching, but it's difficult to get a perception of what beach they were off. Once we got past Llangrannog and Traethbach, we could see the boat going around in circles.
Northland coastline, Newquay RB, Newquay IRB, Town 0. North End, Newquay RB. We're on scene, just informing a vessel staying around this circle, speed approximately 4 or 5 knots.
The Coast Guard informs the crew the Rib's skipper has been picked up by another vessel uninjured. But the boat is now dangerously out of control.
Once the Coast Guard told me that the casualty was safe, immediately that was out of my mind. However, I looked at the beach and the beach was particularly close. I was quite shocked at how close we were to the beach.
Speed approximately 4 or 5 knots, and it's 200 yards off the beach over.
The crew must now work out how to stop the boat without risk to the holidaymakers on the nearby beaches.
They probably wouldn't be able to see what was going on. Maybe they thought someone was messing around in their boat, just going round and round out there. So maybe they'd come even closer to have a closer look.
Lifeboat crews train for most eventualities at sea, but Brett has never come up against a situation like this.
I've always thought about what you'd do if you met a boat that was out of control. It is a little bit like some sort of rodeo experience. You need to be able to drive that boat particularly well to get close to it and not put you and your crew in danger. Once you get near that boat, then it's got a chance to ride up on top of you. Obviously, we're not protected from a spinning propeller.
Brett's plan is to get close enough to drop some rope into the water to entangle the propeller, stall the engine and bring the boat under control. But if he gets his timing wrong or hits the boat, he could send it careering off towards the people on the beach at full speed.
So I decided that I would take these oval curves around it. Every time it did maybe 3 revolutions, I'd meet it once and try and just see if we can get in front of it. So I did that 2, maybe 3 times. On that 3rd time, I clipped the back end of the boat. That suddenly straightened the engine up. It was now headed straight towards that packed beach. At the speed that that boat was going, it would have only been 30 seconds and it would have been up the beach. I knew I had to stop it somehow. I just throttled on as hard as I could. When we got alongside it, Simon jumped on board.
Just a few seconds away from the shore, Simon gets the runaway boat under control.
I've never jumped in an unmanned boat before, especially at speed, but at that time I had no choice and I was willing to put myself at risk to save other people getting hurt.
Once that boat straightened up and started heading towards the beach, that was because of us. We just sent this missile over without those people knowing it was coming. So instantly I knew I had to stop it somehow. It was just massive, massive relief and a bit of a sort of Yahoo moment.
On the coast of Ireland, James is undaunted by his close encounter with the lobster pot lines and still heads out to sea for regular fishing trips.
Since the rescue, every time I see the lifeboat, I think about it. I'll be forever grateful to the Dunmore East lifeboat and, in fact, all the lifeboats in Ireland. Hopefully it'll never happen to me again, touch wood.
It hasn't put you off going out on your boat?
No, not in the slightest. It has made me more alert. There's nothing as delightful as to be out in a boat on a day like today.
In Lancashire, 14-year-old Lewis is still getting over his close call in the waters off Rhyl Beach.
He's been quite unsettled since it's happened. He's been quite withdrawn. Slowly but surely this week he's been coming out of his shell. I'm really determined to get him back to Rhyl Beach because I believe that he should face his fears. As long as you respect Mother Nature and know that she is dangerous. But be careful.
There's an old saying among sailors that a storm long forecast lasts long.
It was just epic. It was biblical.
I knew that it wasn't just 2 lads playing. You know, this was somebody who needed help.
Wait up!
It then dawned, certainly on myself, that this might not end well.
Ready?